Hello everyone, we finally made it to the end, the research essay. And the whole focus of this research essay is going to be representing mental illness. And so you're going to be tasked with determining whether or not a specific text that you've chosen represents a mental illness accurately. This is everything that we've been building up to the entire semester. And so in this presentation, what I'm going to be doing is going to be walking you through the steps and the requirements for the research essay. So let's get started. As with the previous essays, what we need to focus on first is identifying the expectations for the research essay. For this one, students will need to advance a focused argument that is supported with research and logical reasoning. The research essay should select a specific literary text and argue how accurately that text represents mental illness. So for instance, throughout this entire class, we've been focusing on either Poe's The Telltale Heart or Star Trek Voyager's 5th season episode Latent Image. And so we've been trying to argue whether or not either one of those texts is accurately portraying something like PTSD. And so the research essay, if I was going to have an essay on latent image, will answer the question of like the following. Is Star Trek Voyager's latent image an accurate representation of PTSD? Students often have trouble with organizing the research essay in terms of their body paragraphs. They often think, well, what are each of my body paragraphs going to focus on, or what are they going to write claim and support? I suggest organizing the essay around the mental illness's specific symptoms. For instance, each body paragraph could focus on a specific symptom and explain how accurately the text represents that symptom. For instance, we could talk about the doctor's avoidance of sickbay in latent image, and we could use that as a way of saying that that is a symptom of PTSD, and that the show represents that very accurately. To have a strong research essay, you are going to need to have sources, and that does not include the text that you'll be analyzing. So for instance, if I was going to write an essay on Star Trek Voyager's latent image would not be counted towards my outside sources. So I'd need to have a minimum of 5 outside sources. That will include one academic style book, so not a novel, in other words. It will also need to include one scholarly article, one credible website. Now, the other 2 types of sources are up to you, but they still must be credible. So remember that Wikipedia, encyclopedias, and study guides are not typically considered academic-worthy sources. So please try to stay away from those. The introduction for the research essay should introduce the reader to the mental illness that the essay will discuss. So for instance, it needs to answer the question, what is the mental illness? What are its symptoms? Who are the people that typically encounter this particular type of mental illness? You also need to introduce the reader to the text that will be analyzed. What is the text title? Who is the author or creator of the text? And you should also briefly summarize the text. So for example, provide the reader with a brief overview of its plot. And then the introduction should end with the thesis statement that answers the question. Finally, is the text an accurate representation of mental illness? I have an example thesis here for latent image that you can use as a model. Latent image is an accurate portrayal of PTSD because the doctor exhibits the symptoms of suffering from the mental illness. Unlike the previous presentations where I've gone over what each body paragraph should do, I'm actually only going to be focusing on the body paragraphs in one slide because each of them should have the same structure. They're just going to be focusing on different aspects of the same argument. So for instance, each paragraph should have a topic sentence. This is the topic sentence that should start the paragraph. And that topic sentence should answer the question, what is this paragraph going to prove? And in this instance, you're going to be focusing on a specific symptom. So for example, I could have a topic sentence that says the doctor exhibits accurately experiences avoidance symptoms of PTSD. Now, after the topic sentence, you need to include your first piece of evidence. And that evidence should come from your research. So for instance, if I was going to talk about avoidance symptoms, I would need to define what an avoidance symptom is according to PTSD specialist. My analysis should explain that information to the reader. Do not assume that just because you provide the information that the reader is going to immediately understand it. Paraphrase it and summarize it for the reader so that way they have another opportunity to digest the information. After this, you then need to provide evidence from the text itself. So in this instance, I would include a reference to a specific scene, like, so for example, the scene where the doctor says that he doesn't want to go back to sickbay. I could include that scene within this paragraph here. After that, I would explain how that scene supports the topic sentences claim. So I'd say that this fits into all the other evidence and that proves my claim that this is an accurate portrayal of avoidance symptoms in PTSD. And then I should end the paragraph by concluding this having a concluding sentence that explains how the paragraph supports the thesis as a whole. Each one of your body paragraphs needs to have this structure and it needs to do the same thing. Doing that will help better prepare you and better support the essay's overall argument. As with the reader response essay, the conclusion should restate the thesis's main idea, review the main ideas of the essay, and offer the reader a final thought on the topic. Once again, you can offer a suggestion or a prediction for the future. Thank you for watching, and please let me know if you have any questions.